Hey, it's another Saturday in the kingdom. All right, so today we are making some, yes, delicious stuffed meatloaf. So I got the vegetables and things over here. I'm just gonna pair it with a salad because meatloaf is essentially a meal all in itself. Okay, so and I don't necessarily want to make like mashed potatoes and stuff with it because that's a lot of starch and a lot of the ingredients for today makes the meatloaf already kind of high in like sugars and carbs and all of that stuff. So I figured we can throw a salad with it and get some fiber in there and some other nice good green leafies and some nutrient vitamins and stuff since pretty much everything else is already in the meatloaf. But you're more than welcome to make you some mashed potatoes to go with it. This doesn't necessarily have gravy, but we will be making a glaze, hence the brown sugar. And it sounds delicious, like all the stuff that's going to be in it. Yes. So I have here some squash. Let me see if y'all can see this. I got y'all all the way over there. So I have some squash. My squash kind of froze in the refrigerator because we have it turned up because our refrigerator was kind of full and it wasn't keeping stuff cold. And my jar of homemade pickles. So these are actually, this is an old jar. As you can see, there's no label on it. And all I did was just add some vinegar to the jar, and the stuff floating around in it is peppering, pickle pepper. It's pickling pepper. Pickling spices. So this is what's in there. So that's what I seasoned it with. It usually makes it taste nice and light and airy. You can add whatever other seasonings you want. You can crush some garlic cloves and throw it in there for a nice, full, luxurious, savory garlic flavor. You can put some Vidalia onions in there. The Vidalia, they're like this big, so they're like small pearl. They usually call them pearl onions. That's the same thing, right? Pearl. Well, pearl onions. Or you can put like sweet onion, chop up some sweet onions and throw it in there. But pickles, you can essentially season it however you want to. If you want sweet pickles, you can put some honey, some brown sugar in there. Get it nice and some cinnamon and stuff. Like you can do what it is cucumbers. Like cucumbers have a fairly neutral taste to them, and you flavor it however you want. This that I'm cutting up, like I said, is my slightly frozen squash. So I'm gonna dice it up and add it to my salad. I have some fresh basil here. It looks weird, but yeah, it's fresh. I got a basil plant outside on my balcony, and I just went and cut some sprigs off of there. And then we're gonna add that to the meatloaf. And I know you're like, what are the pickles for? The pickles are for the salad. Because when you think of meatloaf, like the way the flavors go, it's almost like a cheeseburger. So of course pickles go with that. And I got some Kalamata olives, mostly for the color. I like the color. They're like a deep, dark burgundy. Some thyme. That's going into the meatloaf. So I'm going to pull the leaves off of the sprigs in there. We're going to add it to our seasoning mix. And of course, I have my mushrooms. So these are just basic portobello mushrooms. I bought them sliced like this. But you can definitely buy, like, depending on the prices, because now, like, the sliced mushrooms are the exact same price as the whole mushroom cap. So I just started buying them sliced and save myself some price and time. So you see, when you do the math real quick in the store, sometimes you can save yourself time at home. And then I have my shiitake mushrooms. I talked about these on the RockTruth Science Show. I believe it was this week. Yeah, Tuesday. And shiitake mushrooms are a great source of selenium, which is wonderful for your immune system. So, these are immune building, okay, mushrooms. So let's get into it. So I have my meatloaf mix. For those of you who are already there and don't eat pork, don't buy the meatloaf mix because there's pork in it. So the reason why they mix the pork in is so that it congeals, that big meatloaf blob, because other ground meats don't really form well, like that. And then beef, it shrinks a lot when you cook it. So the mixed meat tends to make it form better, and that's why it's mixed. Otherwise, you can just use any type of ground meat, ground lamb, ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey. Add an egg for every pound of meat that you're using, and that's also the breadcrumbs are for. So I just got these. You can literally any type of breadcrumbs. If you don't have some like this on hand, I usually keep some on hand because I like to, use it on my chicken breast and stuff like that, and when I do chicken parmesan and all that. But you can just literally toast some bread and crunch it up. Literal breadcrumbs. Like, don't overthink it. All right. Or like us, we have plenty of these little bread cubes left over from like holiday stuffing. These are breadcrumbs. That's breadcrumbs too. So you got options, and it's already seasoned. So if you don't have a lot of these herb seasonings that's listed in the ingredient list, you can definitely go and buy some seasoned breadcrumbs or seasoned that stuffing cube stuff. And same difference. See, you gotta think outside the box. So I have my basil here, my parsley, and my oregano, and my cayenne pepper, and then I just have this salt. You can use any type of salt. I like the fresh ground salt situation. I have my mixed pepper for the peppering, and I believe that's all we need. And I have balsamic vinegar instead of red wine vinegar. They're pretty much the same, okay? So this is going to be a savory dish, so if the type of vinegar base it's not important. The tang is still going to be there, and instead of ketchup, I'm using the rest of this sun-dried tomato pesto, okay? Same difference, Like I say, it's about preference and what you have on hand. Like, we cooking. We're not saving lives here, so no need to overthink it, all right? But like I said, for the most part, baking stuff and like cakes and stuff like that, those tend to be more precise with the ingredients and the measurements because of the chemistry that goes into making a proper baked good. But, this is a savory dish. So these tend to be a lot more fun, and they have a lot more leeway with what you can and can't do with the ingredients and how you cook stuff. She got an attitude because she's in her bed because she's nap time. So she usually does that, and then once it get quiet, she gonna be asleep. That's why we don't even be pressed about it. We just ignore. Yeah. She'll be like, I know y'all hear me. Do we? Alright, so that is that. Oh, the base for the salad. So, of course, I have my spinach greens. Well, spinach, spinach. Popeye, was my spinach hero. So, boom, that's why I love spinach now, because of Popeye. So, see, cartoons aren't all bad. It was very violent, but my takeaway was spinach makes you strong. And then this is the base green, collard greens, okay? They aren't only good soup with neck bones and, stuff like that. They are also a very delicious and nutritious salad green. So, yeah, this is a way to reimagine some foods that I'm pretty sure you're already familiar with. And I'm going to actually cut these up smaller. So these are already, like the collard greens are already cut into like strips, but some of the pieces have like gigantic stems in the middle of it. So I'm going to see about rearranging that. Because I don't necessarily I like crunchy stuff in my salad, but not necessarily collard green stems. So, yeah. All right, so let's get mixing. So we're going to get our meatloaf going because that needs to cook in the oven. And I have a bowl here, my mixing bowl, to mix everything up in. And this is my salad bowl. I'm going to put my salad stuff in there. And I just lost the recipe. Yeah, I use the recipe, the same recipe I tell y'all That's on the ad. It's a recipe. I use my cooked stuff so that y'all can see how it actually looks when it's done. And then, like I said, if you want to cook it however you want to, and we do that. And then if I have any adjustments that I'm making when I cook it, I tell y'all here. So, get scissors to open up the meat. About that. Oops. Okay. Yeah, that's the only way to get her quiet for real. She love that coconut and stuff. And before, I couldn't get her to watch nothing but Shimmer and Shine. Now she is deaf on that coconut. So we're gonna preheat our oven. And mind you, you know I love y'all because it's extra hot today. It's already 80-something degrees. Has been for a few hours now. So the fact I'm making a meatloaf off steel just shows the care that I have for y'all in my heart. Alright. So for the baking pan, I'm actually going to use my not a casserole dish, but I'm going to use my little Pyrex dish because I like the shape of it, and the shape's like meatloaf to me. And it has a lid, so I don't have to do nothing extra. Put the lid on it, and boom, leftovers are already stored. So definitely consider getting you some dishes like that. And so we're gonna put olive oil. We're gonna put a little bit of oil in there, just a smidge. Here we go. I have to spray. So the spray gives me a nice even coating, so it's not like a whole lot, but it's enough to grease it. If you're using a metal pan, you might want to consider using a little bit more than what I just sprayed on there. But I just did that so that when the glaze and stuff goes in there, because it's mostly sugar, that it doesn't get stuck to the dish and actually scoop the meatloaf out. Okay, and then we're gonna mix our ground beef. Let me get my measuring cup. We need a couple of breadcrumbs. I probably need a bigger bowl than this, but I feel like this is going to be a problem. We'll do that. That's the bowl out. Okay. So yeah, we're going to use a big bowl. Big bowl bowling. So I'm going to bring y'all over here. I can actually sit y'all on top of on top of my baking dish. Turn it along in that way. Aha, there we go. Okay. So y'all can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Let me see that. That down. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do our boom, because you know your girl's slightly blind. I'm not going to be able to see that from all the way over there. So we got our one cup of breadcrumbs we're going to add up in here. And I believe this is a little bit more than 1.5 pounds of meat, but it's not that much more than that. So make sure that if you're using more or less than the amount of meat, that you adjust the rest of the ingredients accordingly, because you could end up with some extra mushy, non-formed meatloaf, or some really, really, really dry meatloaf. And you know that's like the number one line with cooking. You don't want no dry meat. Especially the meat, like the meatloaf, it's like, how you make a meatloaf? It's meatloaf. And trust me, there are people who can and do. That's why we're here, right? So we can all learn this together. Make sure we are on task. Okay, and then we're going to add, so these are the the dry basil leaves, like I said, I got some fresh basil. 'Cause we fancy. We're fancy, so we're gonna use the fresh basil. So I'm just gonna slice, and it smells like the fresh basil. It smells so like not that like dried basil doesn't smell good, but trust me, you ain't got nothing on fresh basil. The aromatics of it is different. But they have the same nutritional content, so all the good nutrients and useful properties of fresh basil are still maintained in dried basil. They usually have differing levels of antioxidants, so once you start cooking and drying stuff, especially plants, it affects the proteins in them, so it could change the antioxidant content. So right now I'm just cutting the basil off the stem, just plucking the leaves, leaving the stem so it ends up looking like, to it clear. And then just cutting it up so that you don't run into big giant basil leaf chunks. Not that I'll be complaining because I love the way basil tastes actually. Yeah, there we go. And so now we got our fresh basil. Okay, got our fresh basil going. Okay, we got our fresh basil up in here. And pour some thyme. So this is what the thyme looks like on the sprig. Okay, now you see these the dark leaves on here. I don't know if you can see that. It's not focused. But it's like some darker colored leaves. That's how you know when your fresh herbs are starting to get not so fresh. So when you start seeing them do that, you can decide to use them right away, or you can just go ahead and chuck them. Because usually once they start turning like that, they end up not tasting so good. But with time, because it has such a strong flavor, it doesn't taste bad. It's just the flavor isn't as strong. So if you do have some kind of dark thyme leaves, it's okay to use them, but you might need to use slightly more than what you normally would if there's a lot of dark leaves. So keep that in mind. The same with mint. Mint leaves tend to turn black like that when they're going bad, and those I actually wouldn't recommend trying to use because for one, they don't taste like much, and for two, I've actually experienced that it makes my stomach feel slightly upset, which is like the opposite of what mint is supposed to do. So, yeah. And these, I'm just plucking the little individual leaves off of the stem. See me doing that. I know it's somebody's birthday. Apparently, I know way more Leos than I thought, because like once Leo season came, it was like every day I had like 10 birthday notifications on my Facebook. I'm like, y'all busy, huh? Some busy bees in July, August. And I'm smelling it, and see, this is also why I love cooking, because you get to smell how everything smells, and then it like triggers your taste buds, and it actually helps jumpstart. Oh, see this little one, you can see that. I'm trying to get it to focus better. It's not focusing. Yeah, it's not focusing, but let me see if I turn it like this so y'all can see. It's still not quite focusing, but there's like little nodes going on here, so you can see where new like thyme leaves was coming in between the little leaves at the tip of the thyme plant. And that's still cool to me. I love plants. If we have time, I'll show y'all my plant on the balcony. It's flowering. Got big yellow flowers in it. Nice and pretty flower. One of the flowers are starting to die, starting to lose its leaves, and then another one is starting to open, and there's a couple of buds sitting on there. So that's always fun to see. All right, so now we got our basil, thyme. We're gonna put some parsley in. Parsley is also another one of those herbs that's great for digestion. So it's not just a pretty garnish. And it grows like a weed. So if you want to grow your own parsley, you can definitely do it extremely easy, indoors or outdoors. It grows really great and very quickly. And then, yeah, I'm not measuring this. This is all by sight. So the measurement is about 1 teaspoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley. So I use fresh basil, so I have to use more than a teaspoon. So if you're using dried, you don't need as much, but if you're using fresh, I would say double to triple the amount, especially depending on how strong you want that flavor to come through. So those are all of my herbs in now. Now I'm going to add my black pepper. So this is a half a teaspoon. And like I said, this is also based on how spicy you want it, so eyeball it. And then salt. The salt is a teaspoon of salt. And because these are large salt chunks, they're not as finely ground as like table salt and things usually are. I didn't do as much of that because I don't like salty food. I'm not sure how many people do. So now we're going to add our milk. I think my milk is slightly frozen. So a half a cup. I ball it because my half a cup measuring cup is somewhere else. Eyeball that. And then we're going to put our Worcestershire sauce. So the first amount is what's going in the meatloaf. The second amount will be going into the glaze. So 2 tablespoons. I gauged that squirt amount as a teaspoon, so I did 4. But the Worcestershire sauce also adds to the the juiciness of the meat, how juicy it stays. Like I'm not sure if y'all add Worcestershire sauce to your burger meat, but I do, and it definitely keeps it juicy. So now we're just gonna knead it. Mix all the stuff in. And it already feels delicious. Okay. All the stuff mixed into your meat, especially the breadcrumbs. Like you want to make sure you're getting the breadcrumbs mixed in really good with the meat because that's what's going to keep your meatloaf together. And also, you don't want to run into dry breadcrumb patches because they will also not end up being available to soak up juice and soften up, and then it messes with the consistency of the meatloaf. So make sure your breadcrumbs are mixed in. So everything looks pretty homogeneous, with the exception of my fresh herbs, but I like the way it looks. It makes it look pretty. So it looks like a healthy mass of meat. Okay, right? What's the problem? What's the problem? Lay down. Go ahead and lay down, baby. Go ahead and lay down and take a nap. Go ahead. Okay? Do the. Here. Where's your chocolate milk? Any of your cup. Here. You thirsty? Sorry. It seems like people always call at the wrong time. Now when I'm free and not doing nothing, phone is dry and silent. Alright, so now we're going to start forming our meatloaf so that we can stuff it. My favorite part. Okay. So y'all can see what I'm doing. And I need to get my mozzarella. So I got the long pieces because these cut into slices better than the round mozzarella ball. And so we're going to take half of this meatloaf in here, and we're just going to flatten it out into this pan. Okay. And we're going to try and make it so that it's like a little dip. You see why I'm using this pan now. I mean, meatloaf is one of those things where it don't have to be like perfect, but this makes it easier, especially for stuffed meatloaf. Because I did do a stuffed meatloaf like way back in the day, like a lot of years ago, like at least like 4 or 5 years ago now. And I didn't use like a pan and stuff, so some of my cheese was like oozing out of the side because I couldn't quite